This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Eldorado Gaming. Eldorado Gaming is your site for gifts and gaming accessories like dice, playmats, and other items to bling out your games. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Find us on YouTube at Eldorado Gaming TX or our home site at eldoradogaming.com. Here at My Mythical Meta, we talk about gaming with friends and strangers, resolving conflicts, and keeping game nights fun, interesting, and recurring. Our game of choice is Magic the Gathering, but our hope is that what we share is relevant for board gamers, RPG groups, video gamers, and maybe even your poker night. I'm Travis, and with my brother Benjamin and my friends Derek and Randy, we've been playing Magic together since 2014. The secret to a healthy meta is not in the game you play, it's being good friends. Subscribe to My Mythical Meta, presented by Eldorado Gaming, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to My Mythical Meta. My name is Travis, and I'm joined this week by my brother Benjamin.
Hello.
And my friend Derek.
Hello.
Randy was going to join us today, but he got food poisoning earlier this week.
He has a hurt tummy.
Yeah, his tummy no feel good.
Yeah.
And he just finished moving. He told us he literally turned his keys from his old apartment in today. So we're giving him one more day. The universe is giving him one more off week. And next week, we'll force him to podcast with us no matter what.
Yeah, if he misses next week, he loses his health insurance. We'll take away his $5.
Yeah, exactly. Derek, we have a Christmas gift ready for y'all.
Oh, yeah?
A Christmas bonus.
Yeah.
But Randy has to podcast again in order to earn it.
Oh, God.
For both of you.
Ah!
If Randy doesn't podcast again, it affects your bonus.
I quit.
Derek, you're in charge of him. You are your brother's keeper.
Ah.
Call him up. Get him on right now.
I'm going to text him right now. Listen here.
Derek. No bleeping this episode.
Oh, well, I guess you're going to have to keep it in.
No, we all just have to watch ourselves.
This will be one of those episodes.
Yeah, exactly. We are in for a great episode, I think. We're going to start off with an announcement. We are signed up for another convention. We are going to be at TCGCon Houston.
Yay!
In 2024. That's February 10th and 11th at the George R. Brown Convention Center. We finally get to stay nice and local here in the Houston area. So if you are one of Mr. Campagna's students, you can come see us at TCGCon Houston.
Yeah, and even if you're not one of Mr. Campagna's students, you can come see us at TCGCon Houston.
That's exactly right.
Maybe one of Derek's little rabble-rousers.
One of the students that Derek very briefly subbed. Hey, Mr. Williams!
Hey, I remember you.
Come by and see us at TCGCon Houston. I got us the cheapest booth, so we're in the back. We'll be there. According to the floor plan, we will be very close to the special guest area, though.
Oh.
That's the bad area?
So we're not in the front near the entrance. Those were the most expensive booths. We're in the back against the wall with the special guests, though.
That's why they keep all the real gems. So you guys are in good company.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. I love doing conventions. We're going to have some new products available. The stuff that we have not sold at conventions yet. So the Captain's Cash dice storage box and tower.
Yeah.
We will have with us the Dragon Scroll cases.
Mm-hmm. Those are so
the Dragon
nice.
Scale scroll cases. The Etched Prism D20s. Those are available online now. You can get them in time for Christmas. All of these I'm mentioning.
In time for the holidays, Travis.
In time for the holidays, no matter what your gift-giving traditions are.
What's the code they can use to get 23% off their order?
Our holiday code is Xmas23. Xmas23.
It's available now through Christmas Day. So when you wake up Christmas morning and you find a bunch of money in your stocking, you turn around and spend it at EldoradoGaming.com.
You know what? That's a great idea. I approve.
Oh, hold on. What if you snuck into your parents' room, grabbed their wallet, pulled out the credit card, and read those 3 wacky digits on the back?
You could also spend all your parents' money at EldoradoGaming.com.
And at least you would get them a deal.
Yeah, exactly. You get them a great deal on gifts for you.
Or for the whole family.
It's really a gift for them that you got them a great discount on dice for you.
And they'll only appreciate value. They're heirlooms.
That's right.
Truly.
Dice are this generation's fine china.
God, I wish.
Right? That'd be awesome.
I wish they were our generation's fine china and not fine china. Because my house is full of fine china.
Right. Ugh.
Benjamin, is your house full of fine china also?
Not china in the sense of plates and stuff.
Is
but
it like teacups?
We have so many teacups, teapots, tea kettles, soap dish. Yes. You know, it's right on top of our bookshelf right next to the TV.
Yeah.
And then we've got a bunch of silver. I mean, no, it's very poor, inexpensive, non-silver stuff.
Not worth breaking in for.
Absolutely.
We have a china cabinet full of china, but we also have 2 styrofoam ice chests outside in our garage full of fine china, and they're all like wrapped in paper and bubble wrap and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll come throw it away for you.
Gladly.
I'll get all
Dude,
that out of your house.
get
I'll do this for you.
Get Kristen, come by with a sledgehammer and just destroy everything in my garage except for the vehicles.
Let me loose. Unleash me.
So that's our first announcement. Come by TCG Con, Trading Card Game Con. I did go to this con last year. It's a lot of fun. We're Magic players. And a lot of times when you go to these pop culture cons, like OniCon that we went to was an anime convention, even Comicpalooza does not have that much Magic-specific stuff.
Yeah.
But TCG Con definitely does. Lots of plushes and toys, binders, and of course, card availability. Magic the Gathering artists are there doing panels, signing cards, selling tokens, selling playmats. This really is a con for trading card game players. So if you play Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, obviously. What are all the other ones?
Lorcana.
Lorcana's new. That would be new this year.
Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, Flesh and Blood. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Flesh and Blood.
Force
Pretty
of
sure
Will.
There's a one-piece one.
Yep. I don't remember what it's called.
Digimon's having a comeback.
I think the Dragon Ball Super card game should be getting a computer version soon, like within the year, which I bet will push the trading cards up also.
Yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to the online version. It looks great.
Yeah. Might have to learn some new games while I'm there.
Yeah, it does look like there are a couple tournaments happening because a huge section of the con is called tournament seating, and it's just huge lines of tables ready for games to go. So I would imagine over the weekend that there are some tournament events that you can get into.
Okay. And I could go and sell a bunch of my extra Magic cards and then buy dice with them.
Yes, you could. I've done that before. I imagine there would be opportunities for you to sell your cards here if you wanted.
Yeah. You did it at Magic Fest Dallas, right?
Yeah.
When we did that.
Yeah, I made like $400.
Yeah.
By selling a bunch of old cards. So, if you are a trading card game player by February, you still have time, then you can come to TCG Con and see us there. We look forward to it.
Yeah.
We have got an interesting episode today. Last episode, we talked about quitting prematurely. And one of the main reasons that people would sometimes do that is if they were in a losing position and could not possibly see a way back to the top. And we talked about how that was one of the few socially acceptable ways to quit, was to make sure that your presence isn't affecting the game state or affecting anybody else's permanence or anybody else's position, and then saying, listen, I'm losing, there's no card in my deck that can get me back in a stable position, I'm just gonna sit the rest of this one out. Well, another course of action, if you're in that position, is called Kingmaking, and that's what today's episode is about. Benjamin, tell us what Kingmaking is.
Kingmaking is when you take actions with your game pieces, your position, that don't necessarily help you to win, but give a distinct advantage to one of the other players. And usually on purpose. You don't care about yourself anymore. You specifically try to make someone else win. Maybe you spread yourself real thin near one player so they can take over all your stuff and double their position. Maybe you go all out at a particular player to weaken them so that someone else can mop up. Maybe you blow all your removal on somebody's board, leaving them wide open for someone else. There's lots of different ways to king make, but it's where you do things that are not strategically advantageous to you in an effort to specifically help or specifically hurt other players.
Do y'all remember in Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, whichever the last one was, when they find out that General Hux was the mole or the informant or whatever?
That's right, yeah.
And they said, "You're helping us." It's like, or I don't know what they said, but he's like, "I don't want to help you. I want Kylo to lose or whatever."
Something
so
like
he says
that,
something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of is what Kingmaking is. It's saying, I don't care about my own position anymore. I know that I'm going to lose, or I know that I don't have a choice. There are still a few actions I can make that can affect the outcome while I'm still in this game. I can choose who can win. I can do whatever's in my power to favor a player in order to help them.
Yeah. So why do people do that?
I think the way I do it the most often is if I've been slighted perhaps more than one time by the same person, or maybe I'm still holding a grudge from a previous game, I just want to see you suffer. So I'm going to help your opponents make you miserable. And it's not good. It's not a good thing to do, but that's a reason why they do it.
I do think it's okay with your friends, because it builds up on that sense of rivalry, that history that you might have with a certain player. I mean, I've seen Derek and Randy do this lots of times. It's just saying, I don't want Randy to win, and so I'm going to blow my last bits of removal on his stuff before I die.
Yeah. I will say that there are lots of people online who will do this, what they say is strategically, similar to what we talked about last week, where people say that they concede strategically. There are people who say, well, I'm not going to concede. I'm going to do more. I'm going to go all out at you, even if it means I lose, so that you learn to not attack me in the future.
Yeah, and we briefly talked about this all the way back in episode 2, and we called it going nuclear. A complete disregard for one's own standing in the game, and just spending every resource they have to take one particular player down. Even though this is a multiplayer game with several opponents, going nuclear means focusing all of your efforts on one player. And Kingmaking often looks like this. In the position where you have removal to spend, you have resources that can help to harm somebody's position. Well, that would be what Kingmaking looks like. Making one person exceptionally weak so that the new quote-unquote king, the new top player, can emerge.
Yeah. Some other reasons people might king make, if they make a deal, they're like, look, I realize I'm dead. There's no way for me to stay in the game. But if someone's willing to keep me in a little bit longer, protect me, or whatever, you say, I will play all my cards against this player if you'll not attack me, if you'll protect me for a turn or two. Sometimes that's just a way to keep playing the game, to continue to have fun, right? You're basically making a deal to have fun. But sometimes they're trying to be strategic, hoping that by taking out a third player and making a deal with someone who won't attack them, they can change the board state such that maybe they're drawing live again.
Yeah.
So it just looks like Kingmaking.
This, I think, is my most common way to Kingmake. If someone has me dead on board, which just means they clearly have the creatures that have more power than my life total, and I don't have enough blockers for it. Or say they have some other combination of cards on the field where they can take me out whenever they want. One of Randy's favorite cards, I wish he was here for this conversation, is Aetherflux Reservoir.
Battle Chestnut.
Yep. Aetherflux Reservoir is a 4-mana artifact, and its first ability says that you gain life for each spell you cast. So you gain 1 life for each spell you cast and each spell you cast before it, which is not really as impactful as its second ability. Its second ability is the one that Randy knows how to use the best. It says, pay 50 life, Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to an opponent. Well, most of Randy's decks are life gain decks, or even if it's not most of his decks, it's a strategy that he uses really well. And so if he has more than 50 life, in some cases 70, 90, 100, if he has enough life to spend 50 and just blast somebody down, it's basically like he has this laser beam pointed at anybody's head. And when that happens, I'm usually one of the first people to say, listen, I want to stay alive. What do you want me to do? I'll be your slave for the rest of the game.
Yep, you're the one on your knees kissing the feet.
Yeah, because I want to stay in this game a little bit longer. And if somebody has me dead on board, that is something I can do, is say, well, listen, I can help you out. I can spend my removal on one of your other enemies. Just kill me last. And that's something you'll see online in Reddit. This is a type of deal that you'll see with content creators, I think. People who are doing like live Commander gameplay and stuff. Because it's kind of funny in that position. To have somebody who says, listen, there's nothing I can do, but I do still want to stay in this game and make jokes and play cards and make content. So they'll say, listen, just point me at whoever you want me to attack or whatever. Every time I do this, I am still thinking in the back of my mind, maybe in one of these turns that I'm left alive, I can draw the card that gets me out. Draw one bit of removal, one Swords to Plowshares, which is, sorry, I was told once by a listener that I need to explain more cards. Swords to Plowshares is 1 white mana. It's very cheap, and that's why it's a very popular and very powerful spell to play. And it gets rid of a creature, and it exiles it completely. So it doesn't go to the graveyard. It exiles a creature completely. Your opponent gains life equal to the power of the creature that was exiled. But that's it. In almost all cases, that's a price you're willing to pay. That's a gift you're willing to give them in order to get rid of a huge threat. So I'm hoping, if I'm in the game at all, that I can draw one more card that can put me back on top, that I can find some way to stay alive.
What's that one card? There's an ability on some cards that said while it's on the stack, people can't do stuff.
Split second?
What?
Split second.
Split second.
It's an
That's
ability
what I'm
called
looking for.
Split Second. That means your opponents can't respond to it after you cast it.
Yeah, so we were playing Magic this weekend, and Randy had out Aetherflux Reservoir, and he's sitting across from me, and he was talking about how he always tries to get enough life so that if someone does something in response, he blasts them for 50, and in response they do like Teferi's Protection, which basically says you can't lose life and you gain protection from everything, etc. And I was thinking that a card that you could use to draw out of that situation is a Krosan Grip, which has Split Second. You can destroy his Aetherflux Reservoir, and he can't respond by blasting you for 50.
Yeah, I mean, there are cards that can get you back into the game. Now, we're kind of talking about Magic because that's the game we play most often, but Kingmaking can happen in lots of games. Any free-for-all multiplayer game can have an element of Kingmaking.
Yeah.
Benjamin, you mentioned in Risk, intentionally spreading yourself out so that you only have one soldier in each of your territories. That way, one of your enemies could easily sweep through your territory.
Yeah, what this might end up looking like is, let's say you've been building up in Australia, and one of your opponents has taken all of North America and South America, and another of your opponent has Europe and Africa, and everyone's fighting in Asia. Well, you're going to lose that, right? Because they're getting 7 or 8 extra armies a turn, and you're getting 2 extra armies a turn. You're never going to win. So now you can choose which one you want to let win. By basically giving them Australia, you kind of attack in their direction and leave one soldier available so they can swoop in, and now they're getting the extra armies.
Right.
And it strengthens their position a little bit. That's one way to do it. You could also just take your big force that you've kind of amassed there in New Guinea or whatever and move it. Say, go hole up in Japan and leave it open for the next player to swoop in and take it. If you get kind of deep into the risk strategy, you can actually not spend your cards. If you know that, hey, spending my cards isn't going to get me back in this, I might be able to briefly hold Asia before they swoop in and knock me back down, and I'm still only getting 2 extra armies a turn, and they're still getting more. Instead, you hold your cards and make yourself available to be killed by one or the other person, and then they get your cards.
Yeah, that's right. I guess that's true.
And then they have...
Instead of spending your cards in your last-ditch effort to stay alive, you hold on to them so that the person who kills you gets them.
Yep, those are some ways that you can Kingmake and Risk. And honestly, doing that, if you're one of the people still in it, it can feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you felt like you were winning before that and the other person ends up winning not through superior play, but because the third person just chose which player was going to win.
Yeah. And that's kind of why this is a topic at all, because it can create some sticky situations where it looks like favoritism or it looks like preference to certain people. And that kind of brings us back to the reason why some people Kingmake. Sometimes it's relationship goals. People want to increase their standing with a certain person outside the game.
Yeah, I saw that so much in college, and especially in law school when I lived at a co-op where there were, men and women living there.
Yeah,
lots of men and women.
You lived in your gaming commune.
Yes, exactly. So we played games constantly there. And you would see sometimes one person having a crush on another person, and they would kind of angle for that person to win to kind of gain their favor.
Ugh,
and you're like,
feels... I don't know, kind of icky.
Yeah, they've made this a team game when it's not supposed to be a team game.
Back in the day, playing Xbox, like Halo 3 or Battlefield 3 or something like that, Call of Duty, when one of these like little kids or whatever finds out that one of their teammates is a girl, and they'll just protect her, they'll fight, they'll do all this stuff.
Oh my lord!
Just to like get attention or whatever. Oh boy,
Yeah.
Crazy. Get down, milady.
They'll give them like all the best gear and all the best weapons and stuff.
Yeah, there are some other reasons people king make too. Like, yes, you can do it to try to create a relationship or increase your standing, but sometimes it just feels good to have an impact on the game. Even in your final action or your last breath, it can feel good to say, I'm making one more choice that matters.
Right, you go out on your terms.
Rather than just giving up. What do y'all think about that? Is that better than just saying, well, I lost? Is it better to make a final choice, or?
I mean, if it's between getting eaten by some kind of gigantic snake or shooting myself in the head, I'd definitely rather Kingmake myself.
I mean, I have seen people do the, I'm going to play Sign in Blood and target myself.
Right.
Kill myself with my last 2 life.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I go back and forth on kingmaking generally. Like, obviously, the more often you're the player in the lead when someone chooses to kingmake, the more often it's going to feel bad for you.
That's true.
Obviously, if you're the person losing and you're the person getting to kingmake, it gives you a sense of power that maybe you didn't have before. Hey, people are going to have to cater to my wishes because they know that if I get into the position where I'm too weak, I get to choose the winner. I don't get to choose myself, but I get to choose who is the winner. And so maybe people will be nicer to me. Maybe they'll bring me some chips every once in a while.
Maybe they'll buy me a fudge round.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll look out for me in the next game or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, just that sense of power. Some people get that sense of power from winning, but some people get that sense of power from kingmaking. It's just a different thing.
Different rush.
Yeah. And if you're not the one who wins often, that might be your only way to get that sense of power from a game, is to be able to affect the outcome.
So some people enjoy being alphas and some people enjoy being betas, is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Well, that's true.
I love to be submissive. I prefer it.
Oh, no.
Anyways.
Welcome to my mythical relationship. I'm your host.
I will say, as the person who is often towards the front of the pack in a game till the end, I don't necessarily win a lot of games, especially when Sarah's playing. But as someone who's often towards the lead, I don't like kingmaking, because I feel like it tends to go, either they help me, in which case I don't feel the rush of having won on my own, or they help someone else, in which I feel like I lost due to out-of-game issues. Even though this is an in-game thing, it was based on a non-strategic choice.
Yeah.
It basically it cheapens everything. And so when I'm in the position to kingmake, I tend to look at it like this. I want the game to feel like a proxy for a real story.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the time in the real world, if a country is fighting a losing war, they don't go nuclear, right?
Yeah.
They don't just say, we're going to blow up.
Well,
no. The only country that has ever gone nuclear was winning at the time.
I guess that's fair.
Right? Countries don't go scorched earth on themselves.
Exactly. And they especially don't scorch their own territory.
Yeah.
Well, now hold on. Historically, famously, the Confederates did scorch their own earth so that way the Union soldiers couldn't have it.
Sure.
Salt the ground, burn the crops.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Confederates.
I think, though, that the idea was that doing that would interrupt the supply line so that they could regroup further away from the Union.
Yeah.
Right? It supposedly would have a long-term advantage. And when they found out that they actually could not win, they surrendered and then started taking advantage of the Union for resources and supplies and paying their debts and all that stuff, right? In the real world, kingmaking takes the form of, I actually do subject myself to you, to the person who actually was already winning, right? So, for example, if there actually is a World War III and the whole world is at war and it comes down to 3 or 4 great powers who are dominating the continents, and I realize that I'm not winning this war, I wouldn't pick one of them and give all my stuff to them. Now, I might ally with them, and they might accept my alliance, but that's for my own preservation. I'm going to stay alive, right? I'm going to extract a favor from them in exchange for my alliance, and the game is not going to end. In the real world, games don't end, right? These are what we call continuous games, I think is what game theory calls it, where there is no end and you play for the long-term survival. Of course, games have to end, and I think we've mentioned that many times before, and there needs to be a winner, and so it's never going to be a true proxy for the real world. But I hate when someone takes a non-strategic action that also would never happen. Right? Basically, it takes the suspension of disbelief out of the game in addition to making the win feel cheap, regardless of who did it. So I will only kingmake if I feel like it's something I would legitimately do in the real world, right? I will make an alliance with the winner if it means I can survive to the end of the game, till scoring, or something like that. But I won't just go all out and risk leaving myself weak and give my countries to someone else. I'm going to make them fight me with me doing my best and hope the dice turn out in my favor against all odds. Because that's what a real country hold up in Australia would do.
Yeah. One thing I realized I do in EDH, I don't really do it in other things, but I'm a sucker for the underdog. And if I know I'm going out, like, hey, get that last bit in, get that last bit of advantage you can on me. And, I think the last time I remember doing it is when we were doing our secret 5 CMC decks. And Randy was playing Ural, the one that Travis made, against
Ural the
Yeah,
Mistalker.
against I don't know.
Would this have been against Kenrith?
Oh, yeah, I think Benjamin was playing my Kenrith. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And Benjamin was dominating almost all game.
Yeah, it was a good
And
deck.
I just really wanted to see Randy come from behind and pull it off. And I don't think I even had anything to offer him except for like maybe getting some advantage by dealing combat damage or something like that.
Maybe like a lifelink.
Yeah, but I would have let him have it.
Or a card draw or something like that.
Just to see if the underdog could pull it off. Which I know it's what you're talking about, how you don't like that, Benjamin.
I think that situation is fine because we were all playing with each other's decks and it was to have fun.
Yeah.
And we're playing in such a long-term meta. If we're making choices to try to even the win percentages a little bit, I feel like that's different.
The cosmic scales of balance.
Yes, we're in the game. But if this was a real-world story, the 4 of us are not our commanders. We're watching the commanders. We're their deities or their avatars or whatever, and we're advising them on how to stomp the competition, and we take a higher position. We don't necessarily care about the outcome of one game. We care about the outcome of the long-term war. It's like Warhammer.
Yes, we are the 4 chaos gods.
Hell yeah.
And so in that situation...
Dibs on Nurgle.
Dibs on the cool one.
Korn, the red one?
Probably. Is he Skull for the Skull Throne, Blood for the Blood God?
Yes,
yeah,
that's him. Benjamin, I think you're very Zinch-y.
I don't know anything about Warhammer either.
Zinch is the god of change.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So he's all about plans and scheming and transformation. And then the last one is Slanesh, who is the god of excess.
Oh.
Partying and vices. So.
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
That's definitely not you, Derek.
I guess
you don't
that's
live
true.
to excess.
You don't live life on
Well,
the
not
edge,
when
right?
it involves money, but when it involves anything else. My devil may care attitude.
Anyway, the Warhammer 40k lore does include like this great cosmic game that lasts for eons.
And that's what our meta is. We're the cosmic entity with an ongoing game or an ongoing war, and our commanders are just our little pawns in this ongoing game. And in that sense, our ultimate goal isn't to annihilate one another, it's to achieve balance. It's to maintain the game. And so playing a Kingmaker where it's like, I want this person to win because maybe they haven't won in a while, or, that person wins too much, something like that, I think it is a form of kingmaking, and it's one that I find a little more acceptable than this is a one-time game, and I'm just going to kingmake because I like that person or because I'm holding a grudge or whatever. I feel like when you're balancing the scales in a long-term meta, it's a little bit different.
So a couple episodes ago was our Making Deals episode, and we did talk about how a lot of these multiplayer free-for-all games are self-policing in that the weaker players will often team up against the stronger player. Is Kingmaking similar to that? Do you think it's the same thing? Just weaker players trying to team up against a stronger player? Or do you consider it something different?
I don't think it's necessarily teaming up. I think, especially in a meta like ours where no one is super weak, right?
Sure.
We have people who are better deck builders or people who are better specialists and people who are better strategists and people with a bit more money. And so we all have our strengths and weaknesses in different times, but sometimes there is a skew in win percentage. And so I do think it's kingmaking. I don't think it's making deals where you wait till you realize you can't win and then decide you want the person with the lowest win percentage to win. That is kingmaking.
Okay.
Now, if you made a deal early on, like you said that in that episode you mentioned, hey, I thought we were all going to attack Benjamin, and then they attacked you instead, which wasn't a formal deal. But if y'all had actually done that, that would have been a perfect example of, hey, we're going to team up against the strongest deck and knock that one out so that the rest of us have a chance. I think that would have been deal-making rather than king-making, because you wouldn't know after I was knocked out which one of you would have been left.
That would have been some kind of like shadow cabal type of situation, some collusion behind the scenes.
Right. But why that's not king-making is because after I was knocked out, you would supposedly still have a chance to win for yourself. It's strategic. Now, that is something people do in war. Look at World War II, where Germany was like, I'm going to team up with Russia so that I can fight on the Western Front without fear. And then when I think I've got the Western Front secured, then I'll turn around and fight Russia. Mm-hmm. And so that deal wasn't, I'm making a deal because I think I'm about to lose, so I better team up with the winner. It's, we both are going to benefit temporarily while we knock out the stronger powers, and then we can fight each other. I think that's fine. I don't think that's kingmaking. Kingmaking is when you realize you're going to lose and you look around and you figure out, who do I want to win? And then you focus your efforts on that instead.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see the distinction where when you're making deals, both parties still have the opportunity to benefit from the deal.
Exactly.
And in kingmaking, like we defined earlier, the person doing the kingmaking doesn't actually have a position left to hold on to.
Yeah.
They already know that they are going to lose.
And it could be that they're still going to be in the game. Like in a game of Catan, for example, where often you hear people say, don't trade with the winner. They have the most points. Stop trading with them. But if you choose to trade with them anyway, knowing it's going to bring about the end of the game, then you're kingmaking. Whereas if you're trading with someone else, you're making a deal because you both think you're going to win out of that. So,
yeah, that makes sense. So when do you think it's actually okay? We've talked about a few scenarios, I think, where it's all right. We've talked about rivalries among friends and our long-term meta.
Yeah.
About how each of our games is just a small battle. It's not a one game wins all, wins the belt, is the best player forever. Like, that's not how our meta is. And so it's okay to kind of tip the scales every once in a while.
Yeah, I think that's what we were just talking about, and I totally agree with that. I think when you kind of expect it from your friends because of the meta you're in, and it's helping to keep a healthy meta. Now, I think if it happens too much, it starts feeling like you're being targeted, and then you can go listen to our targeting episode, and you need to talk to them about that. But if it's once in a while to keep the win percentages stable, I think that's fine. Yeah.
Benjamin, what do you think of the just kill me last defense?
I kind of like it.
Of telling the winner, listen, I'll do whatever you want, just leave me alive.
I like it.
You think that's okay?
Yeah, because when you mentioned it earlier, that's not one I'd ever considered. It's not one I've really done. But when you mentioned it earlier, I realized that I found that acceptable, right? Because it means you are actually advancing your own position. Not in the game, but you're advancing your fun position, which is the point. Like, like you're winning in a different way. Everyone came to play the game to have fun. That's the whole purpose of games. Yeah. And you are trying to maximize your fun, and obviously losing feels bad, but getting second place feels a lot better than fourth place. And to me, that's still winning, right? You are trying to survive till the end, and I think that's okay. I would not feel okay with it if you were like, going kamikaze, where your own position still goes away, right? Where you still finish last, but angling for a better position, even if it's not first, is absolutely fine with me.
Let me throw this out real quick. We've been talking about it. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is. We've been talking about doing a league with points. Maybe we could do it for next year. We figure out what's worth what points or whatever. And maybe coming in second gets you more points than coming in fourth.
Ooh.
I think that is a really great experiment for our podcast.
Yeah.
Come in season 2, we talk about our Commander League, and we put our money where our mouth is. Because you're right, we have talked about this for a couple of years at this point.
Let's do it. We'll have a league, and we can update. We'll start every show with an update on what points we have.
Yeah, I think it'd be so cool.
Assuming we played. Yeah.
That'd be a ton of fun. And like we talked about, man, does anybody remember what... But anyway... We can create...
Oh, I think it was Keeping It Interesting.
So in our episode called Keeping It Interesting, we talked about making a league where you can set up the types of winning conditions that you want to exist in your meta. And you can reward actions that your meta finds fun. I think that sounds great something that would be really healthy and fun and certainly a cool experiment for us.
Yeah. Another time I find kingmaking acceptable is when you're trying to teach something and kingmaking helps present a scenario for that. So I was thinking about kids. Sometimes you want one of your kids to win to keep them interested in the game, or you want one of your kids to see a strategy in action, so you execute that strategy, which maybe benefits one kid over the other. And it doesn't have to just be kids. If you're teaching anybody, sometimes the right course of action is to carry out something that hurts your own position and helps another player because you are trying to teach that scenario. With kids, I'll go a step further. You might be trying to teach character. You might purposely help one kid win over another to help them learn good winning and losing and things like that. And I will clarify here, it is not your job to teach most people. So don't be like, man, you're such a sore loser. I'm going to make sure you lose this one so that you learn. No, just handle that through good, honest communication. But there are some people who it is your job to teach. Your kids, if you're the head of a club, or if you are actually, they came to you to teach them this game or things like that. I think sometimes kingmaking...
They hired you on Fiverr?
Yeah. and in those situations, I think kingmaking can be appropriate to progress someone's understanding of the game.
Derek, when do you think it's okay to make a king?
I think if you and your buddies just fought for Middle Earth at the Black Gate to give Frodo time, and then you all come back to Minas Tirith. What is the city called? Is it Minas Tirith?
I think that's right.
And you're all having a big party, and then the wizard puts the crown on your head.
The white tree of Gondor.
Gandalf gives the crown to Aragorn, the rightful heir of Gondor. And I think that's one of the classic ways of kingmaking that is okay.
When you're a lady in a lake distributing swords?
Yeah, classic kingmaking.
That is socially acceptable way of making.
I guess it depends on your opinion. Some people would say that's no
king of mine.
That's no way to choose
no basis for a system of government. Yeah.
We've discussed some times where it's okay, sometimes it's not. I do think there are some where it's almost always unacceptable to kingmake. My first instinct here was with strangers.
Yeah.
If you are in a pod where you don't know any of the other people, I really think you should just kind of play your own game, lose when you lose, and that's it.
Yeah.
Don't kingmake. Unless you want to make them feel included. Don't kingmake against them at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't go nuclear.
I don't think kingmaking looks great among strangers. I think it looks even worse if you and your buddy were playing with two other strangers. Like, again, the premise of the game is that it's a free-for-all, 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1.
Yeah.
If you want to do teams, play Two-Headed Giant. There is a magic format for that. There are rules to accommodate.
Yeah, we played Emperor this weekend.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun.
It was.
I had fun. I had a good time. Was it because you were the emperor both times?
Sitting there, dirtling.
Yeah, it can be more fun to be the general every once in a while.
Yeah.
We did tell them we'd shout out Steven and Justin.
Steven and Justin, thanks for playing Magic with us last weekend. I had a great time.
Good time too.
Yeah, me too.
I did have a good time.
And y'all were really cool.
Yeah, thank y'all for being cool and hanging out with us and trying out Emperor also. But like I was saying, I really don't think it's okay, like, if you and a friend are playing against two other strangers, and then in your dying breath, you give your friend some extra bonus or whatever, or like you never attack your friend over the course of that game, or you never remove one of your friend's threats, like that is just going to seem like blatant favoritism the entire time. And it's not the game that everybody set out to play. If everybody agreed at the start that it was a 1v1v1v1, a free-for-all multiplayer game, then you should try your best in your threat assessment to treat it that way.
Yeah, definitely. I also don't think it's acceptable in a competitive environment, playing CDDH or in any sort of tournament, which is why us doing a league system is going to make this interesting, especially if there's stakes or prizes on the line or something. I think it just feels slimy and it really undermines the competitive nature to do something non-strategic for yourself to help and basically what is an enemy, right? It's 1v1v1v1. Okay, so I actually have an interesting story about this, and I would love y'all's opinion on it.
Okay.
So first, do y'all agree that in a competitive environment, it just doesn't feel right?
Yes, but
yes, I think I agree.
Asterisks, if we're like playing like for some packs or whatever, and I know I'm going to go out, I might not necessarily help my teammate, but hurt the stranger if it meant one of you guys could win or something like that for like the packs. I don't know. I'm a corrupt dude though. I've got a very loose moral character. Don't listen to me.
I think that in a competitive environment, I should not give anyone an inch.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And again, that's part of the social contract of CEDH, but certainly in 1v1 Magic, like any card that said you and your opponent draw a card, I just don't think that's good.
Right.
And I don't think I would play it in 1v1 Magic.
Right. The reason I bring up competitive environments is because I can think of a situation where this has come up for me personally and with friends of mine. And that's when I was at the World Board Gaming Championship. I went with Daniel, who was a guest a few weeks ago, and his dad. The three of us went to Pennsylvania to play in the World Board Gaming Championships in several games. And one of the games we were all in was a game called Successors. And the Successors tournament was real interesting because it's a 4-player game. And in the preliminary round, there were however many games, I don't remember, 5 or 6. And then the top 2 finishers from each game went to the next round. We all advanced from prelims to semis. And in semis, I and his dad were in the same game against 2 strangers.
So this has happened to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The top 2 players from this game get to go to the finals against the top 2 players from the other game. So it must have been 4 games from the previous round.
Okay.
Top 2 players from this game get to go, or maybe it was even just top player. Maybe there were 4. I don't remember. So if you are not going to win, there does feel like there's some incentives to try to get your friend to win so that your little group is represented in the finals.
Yeah.
And so I ended up not winning that game. Daniel's dad did get to go to the finals. It was not because of me.
Yeah, was he coming at you in the parking lot saying, why didn't you give me that extra army?
No.
Why didn't you help me out?
No, the nature of the game was such that I was out of it pretty early because we were on opposite ends of the board, so we didn't really get to interact with each other very much. And one of the other players did this thing where he kind of spread himself real thin, but had me completely surrounded. And there's a mechanic in the game where if you attack another player, you lose some bonus if you attack first.
Oh,
so by completely surrounding me, he basically gave me the choice of you never get to expand or you lose your bonus. I wasn't prepared to deal with that, and basically I chose to lose the bonus, and it ended up hurting me for the rest of the game. So I never had a chance to affect the outcome of this game. But if it had come down to it, I think I might, going into the last round, knowing that scoring is going to happen at the end, might have chosen to attack the strangers instead of him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's a morally gray area. Like, I don't necessarily think that's right, but also I might have done it. So I don't know.
See, this is why we need more people leaving comments.
Yes.
Y'all leave comments if you think that Benjamin's situation, he should have attacked those strangers and not his friend's dad.
Right.
Derek, when else do you think it's socially unacceptable? When should
I
we not
think
make a
in honor
king?
of Henry Kissinger dying today, it's not okay to king-make democratically elected regimes. They throw the world into chaos. And they're awfully undemocratic.
All right. Anything else y'all want to add on about king-making here? Any final thoughts?
No.
We've covered every facet of king-making possible.
We truly have. There's no Reddit thread that could go more in-depth than what we've done.
Your one-stop shop.
Guys, we are trolling Reddit so you don't have to.
It's true.
Okay, that's what this podcast is all about. And speaking of Reddit, it is time for news from the Warfront. All right. This was a fun one. I thought it was kind of cute, kind of funny. This is a post from our D&D, and this post is from a player who said that the DM metagamed against them, and they just needed to get it off their chest. It says, to keep a long story short, before combat, during initiative, my DM metagamed against me. I prepared an action to cast a spell.
I think homebrew is important to read.
Okay, all right. There's a homebrew second level spell that allows this person to swap places with a target within 30 feet. And they had prepared an action saying whenever a creature comes into range, they're going to cast this spell. Derek thinks it was important. Personally, I don't. I think most spells have a range of 30 feet.
Yeah.
And so it could have been anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
But this is kind of a spell with a pretty interesting effect that allows them to swap places with another creature. But anyway, the trigger is whenever a creature enters 30 feet, I want to swap places with them. So then, during this combat, the DM has his creatures run up, but then they stop at 35 feet away and take shots with their short bows. The other enemies that don't have ranged weapons, they also stop at 35 feet and begin running in a wide 30-foot circle around the player. The poster says that they are goblins. It says if they were intelligent enemies that had seen me fight before, maybe this would be understandable, but they were random goblins. It said I asked if they were particularly intelligent or acting strangely. They made an insight check with a result of 19, and the DM said, nope, you don't notice anything weird. This is just a goblin skirmishing party. And the poster does admit, hey, I just wanted to rant for a second, and they invite posters to share metagaming moments from their DMs too, times where they felt shorted or slighted. I love this post. I think it's adorable because I have certainly experienced this before. Like I mentioned, I want to say very early in our podcast with what we find fun and working with your gaming group, I made several mounted combat characters who used a horse and had mounted combat feats like lances and other stuff like that. I even had a character who took a specialty class and had a war rhinoceros. And sure enough, our DM sent us underground into a cave. So all of these mounted combat feats, resources, creatures that I had gotten and acquired, all of it was pretty much useless in the environment that we were adventuring in. So hearing somebody say, I prepared a spell that has a range of 30 feet, and then nobody ever entered 30 feet. I'm like, preach. I've been there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So my thing was, like you said, a homebrew spell. If the DM allowed it, I mean, okay, so for me, let me speak from my experience. I've said it before. I make up everything.
You mean when you're a DM?
Yeah, when I'm a DM, there's no thought behind my eyes. I just say yes and just keep it going.
Yeah.
So the DM may have gotten in over their head, speaking from experience.
By creating a spell like that?
By creating a spell like that, and we're not hearing the whole story, because maybe he's like, I want to teleport 30 feet so I can bash the brains in, one-shot a goblin, and then kill 3 others in the same turn or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it might just have made his whole character overpowered or something like that the DM didn't know how else to balance. So that's my thought. It could also be that the DM wanted to shake things up. Maybe it's just like every fight is just the same. Teleport 30 feet. Okay, they're all dead. I don't know. Just maybe the DM's trying to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, being able to teleport directly into the mob, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a pretty great ability. This poster doesn't say that there's specifically a spellcaster, so maybe they are a warlock or
Paladin.
A paladin.
Or a fighter with gloves or something.
And maybe they can just, sweep around and hit all of the archers at once.
Yeah.
We don't have that information. Benjamin, what do you think?
I think I would definitely feel like this poster feels, as far as, hey, why are these non-ranged attackers going in a circle right outside of my trigger range? To me, that would just feel really awful, like somebody was using information they knew from outside the game to make things worse, right? Like a DM planning underground missions when I have a war rhinoceros.
Yeah.
And I think when I DM'd different games in high school, I think I fell into that same trap as a DM of being like, a feeling like I'm against the players. And since I'm God as DM,
right,
I can always rig things in my favor or against the players. And that's very possibly what the DM was doing, is saying, well, if my goal is to make things hard on you, because that's what makes interesting stories and that's what helps me to have fun, then I'm going to make your spell not work.
Yeah. Or just make it so you have to fight on 2 fronts now.
Yeah, exactly.
There's archers on one side and the melee guys are going to come in behind you or whatever.
Right. I did read some other comments on this thread that did make sense to me. One of the big ones was, if this was a sophisticated party of goblins, not necessarily super intelligent, but maybe they'd had some military training or something.
Yeah.
It would absolutely make sense for them to all stand just outside of the range of a dash attack and let their archers shoot at you until you have to come closer.
Yeah.
At which point you would be in range of them, and they could rush while their archers are still attacking you, and basically put you in a no-win situation.
Yeah, the archers staying outside of 30 feet, that doesn't faze me at all.
No.
It's like, yeah, that's their whole point.
Yeah, if that had been the only part of this story, I would have thought, okay, fine. And it could be that the archers are their best attackers, and the melee guys are just meant to protect the archers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the DM was doing, but it's very possible they just thought, I'm going to have this band of goblins that fights this way, and it's a puzzle you need to solve on how are you going to stop them from just always running backwards from you. They get close enough to the archers to shoot you, and if you get close, they all back up and keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And, solve that puzzle. But I personally would have felt like this poster did.
I made a character in high school who had the ability to go incorporeal. At the time, this was 3rd edition D&D 3.5, and one of these psionics classes had this ability. And it was like a whole prestige class.
Very good. Thank you.
Going incorporeal, being a ghost. I don't remember if I was Githyanki or if I was something else. But anyway, Michael had us fight a golem with ghost touch gauntlets. I was like, what mad scientist is thinking about all the ghosts that are going to infiltrate his lair? But put yourself in our DM's shoes. You have to think, well, they have this ability, so now I need to counter it and create a challenge somehow.
Yep.
And I do think that is, I don't know if I want to call it a trap, because in most cases, I think that's pretty normal for a DM to think, you have these abilities, I need to present you with a puzzle that uses them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just that in this case, and in the case in our post, it feels like it wasn't, here's a puzzle where you need to use that ability cleverly. It's just, here's a puzzle where you don't get to use it at all.
Right.
Where I've completely hard countered your ability, in this case, this swap spell. I've completely hard countered it by not offering you a target within 30 feet.
Yeah. And I think there is a line that has to be drawn between never letting your players use their abilities and creating scenarios maybe where you nullify one player's ability at a time to let the others shine.
Yeah.
You know what? As Derek mentioned earlier, we don't hear all of the story. It's very possible that this guy has been shining in every encounter using his homebrew spells and whatever. And so the DM says, you know what? It's someone else's turn to win this battle.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to stay 35 feet from you always. And time for someone else. And I think that would be fair.
Yeah.
I do also think that DMs have to be very careful. Like I said, I used to feel like I was against the players. I think that it's important to give your players times to shine and times to do puzzles, but to realize that both situations are about your players having fun. And if your player had a cool concept for a character, you should let them use that concept a few times before you start nullifying them.
Yep.
So I don't know how many times this person had gotten to use this spell before, but if this was the first time that they actually got into combat and they're getting ready to use it, I think the DM messed up because they created a feel-bad moment. Whereas if this person had gotten to use the spell, they had seen how cool it was, and now they're presented with the challenge, that's good storytelling. You keep going, and sometimes your spell doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can liken this to comic books, and I'll use Superman as an example, right?
Yeah.
The first few comics of Superman, or the first movie, or the first few episodes of a TV show of Superman are just going to show him showing off all his powers. He can fly, he can punch things, he can survive bullets, he can shoot laser vision. They just develop all his powers, and you get to go, oh, this guy's so cool, he can do all these cool things. And you don't introduce kryptonite until a few hours into the movie or until a few episodes in, and then you see how he reacts to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's the same thing here. It just all depends on how long this campaign's been going, what they've been doing, on whether or not this was acceptable behavior or not. But I do want to encourage every DM out there, understand that your job is to help your players tell a compelling story. And the compelling stories don't start by nullifying their abilities. It starts by establishing their abilities and helping them to have fun just with the character they've created. And then you start handicapping them and help the restrictions to breed further creativity.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to sum it up. We don't have all of the information, all of the intricacies and nuances of this situation, but it does demonstrate a key point that sometimes your players can feel like they've sunk points into something that they never got to use. And so you as the DM should allow them opportunities to use those abilities. Then you start introducing puzzles or challenges and pushing your players to solve something interesting by using that ability. Derek, anything you want to add here?
No, I guess that's it.
Very cool. Benjamin, hit us with some words of wisdom.
Okay. This is an interesting topic for words of wisdom because Kingmaking doesn't really have a real life equivalent. And so I'm going to leave you with this. Your whole life should be about king-making the people around you. Putting aside what's necessarily best for you strategically, right? You don't have to be Machiavellian. You don't have to always win every interaction. Do things to build other people up. Find people in your life who maybe need a helping hand to win whatever they're facing in life and go help them, right? Maybe do some things that don't necessarily give you the leg up, but really helps make someone else's day, helps maintain the long-term meta of humanity, and makes the whole world a better place that way.
A rising tide raises all ships. Good deeds make everyone better.
That's right.
A rising tide raises the rich people's ships.
Everyone else
Derek,
drowns.
I'm trying to help you out here.
Everyone else drowns.
I'm heated.
No.
I was waiting for Derek to be like, look to help other people around you, except your boss.
Make sure you push them as far down as possible.
But as far as this words of wisdom go, look, your boss, they're a person too. They are struggling with things you don't know. They're not struggling with money, but with something.
People are complex. That's true.
Yeah. They may need to be king-made every once in a while too. But I'm not saying go king-make your employer, obviously, because they've kind of made it.
Yeah, they've already won.
I'm saying never king make your boss.
I think there's a time and place for that. I do.
They'll be in the mud, reaching out, please, water, help. And I just say,
Take this water. What? Oh my god. I don't know. Kristen's boss is giving her a sweet engineering bonus at the end of the year.
Right. So, yeah. But that means that she made them a lot more money than that.
yeah.
That's true. Remember that if you want to get in touch with us, you can, of course, leave comments on both the Spotify and the YouTube version and leave reviews on our Apple Podcast. Like I said, we want to hear what you think of Kingmaking. Do you think it's appropriate? Have you ever done it? In what situations have you considered or done an act like that in a game? And then, if you want to contact us and have your questions or your situations discussed by the Metapods, you can email us at mymythicalmeta@eldoradogaming.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to check out eldoradogaming.com for our holiday sales and use code XMAS23. Thank you for listening, and thank you guys for being my great friends. Have a great night.
Night.
You know, I had a realization a couple days ago that we say good night, but they may not be listening to this in the mornings, the afternoons.
Yeah.
Have a good rest of the day.
There you go, Derek.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.